Hey y'all, welcome to day 2 with my new Mustang Mare. I'm going to announce her name when I remove her tag, so you'll get to see that in this video. To get her started, I just did a bit of a refresher on what we had done the previous day, walking up to her with the stick, and then I started filming, and you can see when I started working on some of the newer stuff that we had done the previous evening. She was a bit distracted by the horse in the pen next to her, so I was trying to maintain her focus, and I ended up moving her to a different corner of the pen where she would be less close to the other horse. You can see here where she was ducking side to side because she was a bit distracted, so I rewarded her when she put her focus on me when I put my hand out. Before recording this video, I figured out a setting that I think makes my camera focus work a little better, so let me know what y'all think of the quality of this video. She actually ended up wandering over to this corner all by herself, and so I decided to work her there. As I'm watching her go side to side as she's figuring out what she's supposed to do, I took the string away so it would be less scary, and then I stood and waited for her to look at me, and then I backed away. This was when she really started to connect. I started to get her to take steps towards me and engage a little bit more. I rewarded this heavily with a long release because this was the first time she took steps towards me when I was actually approaching her. Here she did it again, and she was almost feeling like she was posturing a little bit, like she was trying to see if she could move me away from her. But while I was still trying to be careful, I was rewarding her for doing that because it was a sign that she was coming out of her shell and starting to express herself and engage with me. I really like that, and so while I'm careful, I don't want her to think about being defensive and trying to chase me away. I want her to start to approach me on her own. While I like that she's reaching out and sniffing my hand, I'm waiting her out to see if she'll hold her head still to allow me to pet her. She's initiating the contact right now, which is fine for the moment, but I want to see if I can actually get in a pet on her face without her blocking me with her nose. Right there, I got exactly what I was hoping to get, and I'd already been in her space a little long, so I gave her a longer break for that one. Again, rewarding when she started to engage with me and take some steps towards me. I also wanted to say I just got my YouTube channel monetized. This has been a milestone I've been working towards for a while, so I'm super excited about that. Thank y'all so much for enjoying the videos and supporting my channel. I ended up deciding to clip the lead rope on and start teaching her a little bit about pressure on her face. She was still not quite letting me in, and I wanted to get her to the other side and show her that me petting her is actually a good thing, and that way I could start to help her out with some of the things I was starting to think might be causing her a bit of discomfort. For example, her hooves are very long, and she has quite a bit of mud attached to her fur, especially on her back legs, that I thought might be causing her some discomfort. The sooner I can help her with those things and get her feeling better, the better for her. And so she was really good for clipping the lead rope on. She was a bit distracted sniffing my face, and I was able to kind of sneak it under her chin. So I start off my halter training with some forward motion, getting her to get used to the side of the lead rope in front of her and beside her. And she already knows the body language cues. It's not very hard for a horse that's so in tune to body language to figure out that me waving the string behind her means that she's supposed to go forward, and when I step in front of her drive line, that means she's supposed to stop. And so here is when I ask her to change directions. There's still no pressure on the halter because I want her to see the lead rope in the other eye. So my job is to explain to her what she's supposed to do because she has no way of understanding what halter pressure means and what she's expected to do in this situation. As a flight animal, she wants to escape, so you can see when I applied pressure on her for the first time, she's tossing her head because she doesn't understand, and she's leaning against me because, again, she's trying to get out of the situation. Now here she starts to figure out If she gives to that pressure and she moves her shoulders and not just her head, she gets a big release. And that's exactly what I wanted. So I apply pressure on the side of her face because I find that it's easier for horses to figure out. If I were to just try to pull her forward into leading right away, she would not understand and we'd get into a pulling match. And so I'm letting her wander off because she did something really good. I don't mind if she wants to move forward. She's just confused and figuring it out. I'm as patient and slow with my approach as possible because it's hard for a flight animal whose first instinct is to panic when they feel pressure restricting them to understand what they're supposed to do when a rope on their face is pulling on them. Their first instinct is going to be to lean against it, which you can see she tries to do. And when she realizes it's not working, she's pretty quick to understand how to come off the pressure. It helps that she has a good grasp of body language, and I've taught her sending back and forth each direction. In the beginning, every time pressure is applied, I release when her head turns towards me. I don't ever want to confuse the horse by applying pressure and then releasing when she's leaning against it or tossing her head around, because that would send her mixed signals and she wouldn't understand what exactly I want from her. So every time I apply pressure, I wait until she comes off it and release. Here is where I tried something different because I thought it might help her understand even better. Most of the horses that I've halter trained understand yielding their haunches away from me faster than they understand yielding their shoulders side to side. This mare is a little different, and when we were working at Liberty establishing a draw, she started to understand yielding her shoulders very quickly. So I decided to use that to my advantage to help her understand and to help explain to her better. So I was using the stick and string in front of her drive line to shut off that motion and tell her, hey, I want you to stop and yield her shoulders this way. And she immediately went, okay, I completely understand that, which was a really big light bulb moment for the both of us because I thought it was really neat how I could switch up the way that I typically halter train horses and make it a little different for this particular horse to help her learn better. This is a bit off topic, but check out the angles and the toe first landing of her, especially her front feet here. Those are definitely not comfortable feet, and I wanted to get them trimmed as quickly as possible so I could help her to feel better. She's still a little confused and expressing that with her head movement as she tries to figure it out, but you can see where the movement of the stick and string helped her figure out to yield her shoulders. This time when she goes to wander off, I ask her to face me up again because I want her to understand that she can rest instead of thinking that she's supposed to be moving around. Here she was responding mainly off my body language cues, and there was pretty minimal pressure on the halter, especially when I was asking her to move forward. But she was starting to get the hang of the idea. So then I was able to apply some pressure under her chin with the lead rope while asking her to move forward so she could start to understand what that means. This will eventually translate to leading. Here I tried to get her to yield her hips away from me, and this might have been a mistake because she didn't quite understand that yet, so she panicked and started running forward because she didn't know what that meant. And so I just waited and tried to get her to yield off that pressure, and eventually I asked her to yield her shoulders like I had been doing. I was going to have to go back and fill in the hole where she didn't understand yielding her hips away from me. So in the meantime, I had to go back to the way I had been asking, and I can't see what she's doing, but it appears that she put up a little bit of a fuss about it because she had been a bit freaked out before. But Because the goal was to get her to understand yielding to the pressure on the halter instead of just the stick and string in front of her drive line, I tried to ask her with that first, waited for a second, and when she was still not getting it, I reinforced with the other cue that she understands a bit better. This way, I would start to bridge the gap for her. Finally, I was getting her to yield just off the pressure on the halter, and this is exactly what I wanted. There maybe could have been a bit more slack in the rope, because here, when she started to turn away, she got a bit panicked. Although I was able to prevent her from spinning around, I had to go backwards behind her driveline to reinforce that I was in fact asking her to go forward because she had felt trapped. This was a really good yield to pressure, and so she got a break after that.
And so teaching her to lead, like, I'm not yielding the hips, I'm yielding her shoulders. And she's like, yeah, that makes sense to me.
After her little break, we did a couple more minutes of leading training, and it was just the same thing that you saw in the previous clips. So to save the redundancy, I'm just going to show you a couple highlights. Here's a light bulb moment she had where she went, oh, moving towards you is the goal, and she got a good break for that. And then she had another one a few minutes later. So then I went to touching her with the stick and string to prepare for my hand touching her on the side of her face, her neck, and eventually removing her tag, depending on what she was up for that day. Spent a bit of time on that in between the clips that you've just seen, and it's pretty much the same concept as what we had been doing at the beginning of this video and the previous day, except now I have the lead rope on. And what I should have done here is gone to the side instead of asking her to lead straight forward. She's not ready for that. She doesn't understand what this means, and that just causes her to panic. And I just thought this was really funny, but I ended up bringing her back. But as you can see, I had to go to the side and get her yielding diagonally because she doesn't understand leading straight forward yet. So yeah, that was my bad, but I think it's important to share the less than ideal fail moments. When she panicked again, I just added some pressure behind her driveline with the end of my rope to get her moving forward. That way she understood. She comes back from a spook pretty quickly. She has a good brain. Speaking of fails, I was messing around with camera angles and she started to wander off with the lead rope between her front legs, and I took that as a good training opportunity because at some point in her life someone's going to drop her lead rope and she has to figure out that nothing bad is going to happen if it's trailing behind her and touching her legs. So enjoy this montage of me trying to bring her back. I was able to get some good footage of right before I removed her tag with my camera, and then it decided to overheat. So enjoy the brief moment where I'm working up to removing the tag. You can see where I'm preparing her with the stick and string, and the placement that I have of my hand on the stick is very important because this way I start to get my hand beside her face while doing something that she's a little more comfortable with, which is touching her with the stick. Then I'm able to touch the side of her face and even all the way to her neck with my hand because I've prepared her for that. She got a little nervous, but it wasn't anything too bad. That is when my camera decided to die, so I set up my phone. She was really good about me messing with her tag, so I figured I could get it off that day. It's a little bit hard doing it with one hand, especially when the ropes are a little bit frayed, but her tag wasn't too bad. I corrected my earlier mistake and sent her forward with pressure behind her driveline instead of trying to pull her. For those who are newer to Mustangs, removing the tag is sort of a milestone for them. Of course, some Mustangs get their tags cut off in holding, because they don't want them causing issues if the tag ends up staying on longer than expected. But this mare still had her tag on, and so we got to have this special bonding moment as I removed her tag. Now, for a lot of people, it signifies the Mustang no longer being just a number that she wears on her tag, but becoming a horse with a name. And so I decided this would be a good time to announce her name. I've decided to call her Hesperi, after a water nymph from Greek mythology. I think water nymph suits her because she likes to play in her water trough, and I thought she needed a pretty name. For short, I thought I could call her SP. Let me know what y'all think of her name, and thank y'all so much for watching. I'm really excited to continue sharing her series. Make sure to leave a comment if you enjoyed.